पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसि यथैधांसि समिद्धोऽग्निर्भस्मसात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते तत्स्वयं योगसंसिद्ध कालेनात्मनि विन्दति श्रद्धावान् लभते ज्ञानं तत्परः संयतेन्द्रियः ज्ञानं लब्ध्वा परां शान्तिम् अचिरेणाधिगच्छति अज्ञश्च श्रद्धानश्च संशयात्मा विनश्यति नायं लोकोऽस्ति न परो न सुखं संशयात्मनः योगसन्न्यस्तकर्माणं ज्ञानसञ्छिन्न संशयम् आत्मवन्तं न कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय तस्मादज्ञानसम्भूतं हृत्स्थं ज्ञानासिनात्मनः चित्त्वैनं संशयं योगम् आतिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत। ओम तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे ज्ञानकर्मसन्न्यासयोगो नाम चतुर्थोऽध्यायः। So we'll continue with the study of the Bhagavad Gita, and we are on the 4th chapter. Coming to the end, we will come to the end tonight, surely, of this chapter, the 4th chapter. And we are on the 38th verse of the 4th chapter. So there are only 5 verses left, including this one. So again, at this point, Sri Krishna is talking about the glory of knowledge. And so we'll just launch into where we left off, and then when we come to the end of the chapter, I'll give a summary of the chapter. But instead of giving a review in the present context, we'll just begin from here, begin right into the verse, and then have a review at the end of the chapter. So verse 38 says, Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalenatmani vindati. So, jnanena sadrusham, like jnana, like knowledge, pavitram nahi iha nahi vidyate. Like knowledge, indeed, nothing exists here. There's nothing here that equals knowledge, that knowledge is superior to everything. Tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalenatmani vindati. Yoga samsiddha tatsvayam kalena atmani vindati. So the yoga samsiddha, the one who is completely perfected. Siddha means perfected. Samsiddha means excellently perfected, completely perfected. Samkrishta rupena siddha. So excellently perfected in yoga, in himself, tatsvayam, on his own. Kalena atmani vindati. Through in the course of time, finds within the self. So the running translation given here is, indeed, there's nothing purifying. Oh, I forgot in the first part when I was explaining the word pavitram, which is essential here, that there's nothing like knowledge, nothing so purifying as knowledge here in this world. So indeed, there's nothing purifying here comparable to knowledge. One who has become perfected, samsiddha, after a long time through yoga, kalena, acquires that by oneself, tatsvayam, in one's own heart, atmani, within oneself, within one's own heart. So there's nothing here which is so purifying as knowledge. So first of all, there's nothing here quite like knowledge. Swami Vivekananda says that the purpose of life is knowledge. It's not enjoyment. And that's an extremely important thing to understand. If the purpose of life is enjoyment, then all suffering and pain is pure obstacle. It serves nothing but as an obstacle. There's no value to it whatsoever. Because if the value is to have a good time and to enjoy yourself, then when you're not enjoying yourself, you're not fulfilling the purpose of life. You're just, you're going in the other direction. You're wasting your time. But suffering comes to us unasked. We don't ask to suffer. We find suffering comes as an intrinsic part of life. And so to the one who has realized that experience, as Swamiji says it, or knowledge, as Sri Krishna says it here, that is the purpose of life, then everything has its place. Our joys and our sorrows help us forward. Our good times and our bad times help us forward. Then everything in life can serve to take us towards that. So the most miserable person is the person who feels, and that's most people, feels that the purpose of life is enjoyment, to have a good time, just to be happy and to have a good time. Because nobody has a good time most of the time. Yes, we have a good time sometimes. The Vedanta and the Hindu tradition don't deny that there are good times in life. Yes, there are. And it doesn't say that you shouldn't have a good time when you're having a good time. It doesn't say that when you're having a good time, do something to ruin it because you shouldn't be having a good time. No. Have a good time when you're having a good time. But if that's the purpose of life, then your purpose is being served by maybe 1/10 of life. And in many people's lives, not even that much. But if your purpose in life is experience, then no matter what your circumstances, you're getting experience. You're getting knowledge. Experience means knowledge. Here, there's nothing so purifying as knowledge. He's talking about a special type of knowledge. First of all, he doesn't mean knowing things, learning things. I don't know Swahili, so let me learn Swahili, and that is getting knowledge, and that will be the most purifying of all things. No, he's not talking about that. I don't know brain surgery, so let me study brain surgery by the book Brain Surgery for Idiots, or Brain Surgery for Dummies. Study up on that, and then I've gotten a new knowledge, and so it's purifying. No, he's not talking about knowing things, learning ideas, learning processes and things. He's talking about the knowledge which is experience, the result of experience. When we have any experience, even ordinary experience, even worldly experience, it is a form of knowledge. And so here he's talking about, of course, the higher knowledge, spiritual knowledge. When we get that through experience, there's nothing so purifying as that. Even lower spiritual knowledge, that which we get from really studying the scriptures, from studying sacred books, from thinking about spiritual things, that also is purifying. That also purifies the mind. And the other day, of course, we see that all of the time, but the other day I had back-to-back experiences which were quite striking. I was reading something about the news, the terrible things going on in the news and everything, political things and all of that. And then I picked up the book, The Reminiscences of Holy Mother. And my goodness, one left the mind thinking, my God, what's happening? The world is falling apart. People are crazy and everything. And then you pick up Holy Mother's reminiscences about Holy Mother, and you read about that, and it's so beautiful and so uplifting and so inspiring. And I thought, my goodness, compared to what I was reading just a minute ago, why didn't I turn to this earlier? And so that knowledge, the knowledge which comes from reading a sacred book, from thinking sacred things, from singing a sacred song, that also is purifying. But the highest knowledge, that is spiritual experience. From the lower spiritual experiences, which themselves are high, but the lower spiritual experiences, among spiritual experiences, those which are lower, more initial, and those which go up to the very highest experience, the vision of the non-dual self, or the vision of God, all of those are extraordinarily purifying. So there's nothing so purifying here as knowledge, and one who has become perfected for a long time through yoga. So what does yoga again mean in the Bhagavad Gita? When Sri Krishna talks about yoga, usually he's talking about karma yoga. That is, offering the fruits of your actions to God, not being attached to the fruits of your actions, doing the work for the work's sake. Because the work is there, you do it, and you become a better person by doing it properly. And so that is karma yoga. So one who has become perfected after a long time through yoga, yoga samsiddha, well perfected through yoga, through karma yoga, kalen atmani vindati, with time, kalena atmani vindati, finds within himself, within the heart, tatswayam, on his own, within himself, on his own, finds this direct. That's why on his own means within his own experience. Not by being told by somebody, not by being shown by somebody. There's a place for that. That's the guru gives instruction and so forth. But then eventually, tatswayam, he himself has the direct experience within his own heart. So indeed, there's nothing purifying here comparable to knowledge. Jnanena sadrisham, comparable to knowledge. So one who has become perfected after a long time through yoga acquires that by oneself in one's own heart. And so that is the goal of spiritual life, the fulfillment that comes through the attainment of that. Great Swami many years ago, several decades ago, told me that one of the signs of a genuine spiritual experience. Sometimes we may have an experience in a dream, sometimes we may have even a vision of light or a vision of a deity or something, and we wonder, was it real? Was it a spiritual experience? Well, one way to tell, because such things can happen just through one's spiritual practice, but without it being a real spiritual experience. There's nothing bad about it, it's good, and maybe a signpost along the way, but it's not yet a spiritual experience. It is a spiritual experience if through it we feel a definite purification, an inner purification, because all spiritual experience purify, there's a noticeable purification of the mind. After the spiritual experience, of a real spiritual experience, we feel like I'm a different person, that something has been washed out of the mind, some of the trash in the mind has been washed out. And of course, one has to have successive experiences, and then finally the highest experience before one is completely transformed. But even after an initial experience, one feels uplifted and feels as if, no, something has happened. I'm not the same person as I was. Yes, one can fall back from there easily enough, but after the experience, one feels, no, something has been, some of the obstacles have been washed out of the mind. So spiritual experience itself is purifying. So then we come to verse 39, where he says, Shraddhaman labhate jnanam tatpara samyatendriyaha jnanam labdhva param shantim achirenadhigacchati. Shraddhavan jnanam labhate. So the person filled with faith attains to knowledge. So the person who is filled with faith, tatparaha, who is also tatparaha, which means that is his highest aim. He has that as his highest aim. That is his supreme goal. And who is samyatendriya, samyata indriya, who has control of his sense organs. Control of his sense organs. Now here in this translation, Swami Gambhirananji on Madhusudana's commentary, he says the man who is diligent, for tatparaha, one who is tatparaha. But the literal meaning is better than diligence. Of course, diligence is an implied meaning, but it means one who has that goal, that highest knowledge, paraha, as their highest aim, that which their whole focus is on attaining that, attaining to God, or attaining to the knowledge of the self. So the Shraddhavan, the person of faith, attains to knowledge. He who has that as his highest aim and who has the senses under control. Jnanam labdhva param shantim achirenadhigacchati. So jnanam labdhva, having attained to knowledge, achirena, very quickly, not achirena literally means not very long and not a long time. Param shantim adhigacchati, experiences or attains the supreme peace, supreme peace. That is, when one attains to that, there's nothing else to attain. One has become the ocean itself. So what can disturb such a person? When we think that we are one of the waves on the ocean, then we are very vulnerable. We're being wafted about and we're smashing into things, and we have our rise and our fall and so forth. But when we are the ocean itself, where can we go? On the ocean of existence itself, then there's infinite peace. Not the peace of taking a nice long nap, but the peace of being completely fearless. There's nothing else to attain, nowhere to go, nothing that can affect us. Even no matter what happens in the world, we are completely unaffected. So the translation given here is the man who has faith, or the person who has faith, who is diligent and has control over the organs, attains knowledge. Achieving knowledge, one soon attains supreme peace. So what is a person of faith? What is Shraddha, faith? So faith here is talking about not one who just has initial faith, That is important. We want initial faith. That's a good thing. But that faith which he's talking about here, which leads in a short time to the attainment of infinite peace, that's the faith which comes with experience. That is the deep conviction born of experience. Master Mahashoy M. Sri Ma, who wrote the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he was asked late in his life, what was the number one thing that you got from Sri Ramakrishna? And he said, Shraddha. You might say, well, what about Samadhi? What about the vision of God? What about the grace of Sri Ramakrishna and everything else? He didn't say those things, so he could have. He said the main thing was Shraddha. So here, Shraddha means the deep conviction born of experience that God alone is real and everything here is unreal. That God alone is real and God alone matters, and that I am rooted in that. I am rooted in that. And so such a person, all of their actions proceed from that faith. So such a one has tatparaha, has that as their highest goal. That is supreme in their life. That's what they're aiming towards. They know that that is the only reality. And so may I immerse myself in that. Because even after one has had a considerable spiritual experience, one has to immerse themselves in that over and over again to burn out all of the samskaras. So first, for us who are seekers, who are on the early stages of the path, we want to have the faith which is born of conviction that yes, God is. I haven't seen God, but I know that God is from having seen examples like Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, Swamiji, the direct disciples, and other great saints. I know that God is. And so I have that faith. And so that becomes a working faith. But that faith can be shaken. And so we can't stop with that faith. We want to go forward until that faith leads us to experience. But that faith itself is good. Even the Buddha, who based all of his teachings on analysis and so forth. They told people not to believe in anything unless they had seen for themselves that this is true and good and beneficial, then believe. But once you've done that, he also emphasized faith. Faith is one of the essential steps on the Buddhist path, listed in all of the teachings of the Buddha and the subsequent Buddhist teachers, both of the southern school and of the northern school, of the Theravada, so-called Hinayana, and of the Mahayana faith. And so in Swami Vivekananda's teachings also, he says, don't believe in anything unless you are convinced that it's true and that it's good, similar to the Buddha, he said. But having done that, he said that Shraddha, faith, is the most important thing, because without faith, we can't do anything. Without faith, we're afraid to go forward, or we don't see the value of going forward. Why should I try for something which may or may not be possible? No, so faith is essential. Swamiji used to point to Nachiketa in the Katha Upanishad, the faith of Nachiketa, the Shraddha of, it says, Shraddha Vivesha, Somanyata. Nachiketa watching his father performing this sacrifice in which all of one's wealth was to be given away, but he saw that his father was just giving away his old and useless things. His old and useless cows represented all of his old and useless things. That's what he was giving away, and trying to get away with the name and fame that would come to him and the good Vedic results that would come by giving away all of his useless things. So then it says, Shraddha Vivesha. Then faith entered into the boy. And so he said to his father, to whom will you give me? And then when his father said, I give you to death, which basically his father certainly didn't mean really that you die and that I'm going to kill you. No, of course, he was a father. He's not going to do that to his son. What he meant was, as we would say in English, you go to hell. We don't actually mean you should dig in the earth and dig down until you get to hell and then go there. No, we mean just to get out of here and shut up and don't bother me. So like that, you go to death. To whom are you going to give me? I give you to death, meaning go to hell, get out of here, be quiet, don't get in the way. But Nachiketa, because Shraddha had entered into him, he went down to the house of death. And there he got the knowledge of the truth from Yama. Just a little side note on Yama. When I was in a training center, and I had read the Upanishads, I hadn't yet really studied them, but I was new and had read the major Upanishads. And so one day in my second year, we had a new Acharya who was actually the principal of the new principal of the training center, Swami Mumukshanandaji. He had just come as principal and Acharya, so he was teaching our Katha Upanishad class. And so he was a Bengali, and I was studying Bengali and learning Bengali pronunciation and everything, but still I wasn't that familiar with words and everything. And so in the class, Swami Mumukshananda said, Prahlad, that was my brahmachari name, so Prahlad, you know the story of Jom? The story of Jom? Said, yes, in the Upanishads, you know the story of Jom? Jom? I don't know any story about Jom in the Upanishads. So, then, of course, he explained that Jom Dev who taught Nachiketa, Yama. So Nachiketa went to Jom Dev. He went to Yama, and there he got the knowledge of the self. So that faith is essential in all paths. So what Swamiji wanted and what Vedanta teaches as faith is not what they call blind faith. That is just believing because somebody told you, not just believing because it's written in an old book and because somebody said this is true, so yeah, I'm going to believe it. That faith, why is that faith not good? There are two reasons why that kind of passive blind faith is not good. One is because if you believe anything anyone tells you, then you can believe bad things also and wrong things also without thinking about it, testing it, and seeing for yourself if it's true. And the other reasons why it's bad is even the good things that a person tells you that you believe in that way, you just believe passively. Well, he said it's true, so it's true, so what? So what? So no, you have to think about things and become convinced that it's true. And that's the initial faith, that to know this I've seen enough, I've heard enough, and by seen enough I don't mean spiritual experience. This is before spiritual experience. I've seen enough and heard enough. I've seen enough people who have based their lives on this. I've thought about it enough. I've studied enough. And now I'm sure that this is true. So that is the Shraddha that we begin with, and that's extremely important. It's just that we can't stop there, because that kind of faith can be undone also. And that we can find that maybe the person who teaches us spiritual, has taught us spiritual things, it turns out to be a cheat. That happens a lot nowadays. And then we lose faith in the whole thing. We lose faith in the whole process, because if this person who taught me these sacred things, if he's not living up to it and he's a cheat, then maybe the whole thing is false. So Shraddha has to go deep, so that even if the people I respect most in life, even if they betray me, my faith is there, because my faith is not dependent on them. My faith is dependent on what I know to be true. So Rabindranath Tagore says that faith is the early morning bird who sings before the rising of the sun. It's a beautiful image, that the early morning bird knows that the sun is going to rise. He doesn't even see the red glow yet. It's still dark, but he knows it's about to rise, and so he sings. And so for us, that is faith. And I know that Sri Ramakrishna is. I know that Holy Mother is. I know that the Divine Mother is. I know that the Atman is the truth. I know that I am consciousness. Whatever form our faith takes, whatever our spiritual ideal is, faith means I know this is true. I haven't seen it yet, but now I don't have any doubts anymore. I don't have any doubts. So let me go forward, step by step, slowly, not because we want to go slowly, but because we find that no matter how much we try, it goes slowly. So let me be okay with that. Let me go step by step, slowly, and eventually I'll get there. But I know now that that is true, and I know that that's where I have to go. And so I have no doubt. So that is Shraddha. But then, after one has begun to have some spiritual experience, after a long time, and for many of us it may come just at the end of life, if we have led a good life and we've tried to be devoted the best we can, but we're ordinary people. By the end of life, there are many people who get spiritual experience at that time, even on the time of their death. As Holy Mother has said many times, and as Sri Ramakrishna himself promised, that for those who are devoted to him, at least at the end he will come for them, at least at the end. And that I've seen, that happens for many. Devotees as well as monastics. So have that faith, and when we begin to get experience, if we have experience in this life, all the better. We can't predict it, but if we get it, and that's what we're trying for, all the better. Then our faith begins to go deep. Then our faith begins to become unshakable. Then we've seen enough to know that now we're like the bird that has actually seen the red glow in the sky. And now there's no doubt that the sun is rising. So the bird who sings even before the red glow because it knows that the sun is coming, that's our initial faith. But when we sing because we see the red glow, then we sing even stronger, because now there's no possibility of doubt. So that is what leads to knowledge. So we have to know that faith is intrinsically tied to the end of spiritual life, that is to realization. So that even a person like Sri Mahendranath Gupta said that the greatest thing that he got from Sri Ramakrishna was faith. So that the rest of his life, he was tatparaha. That was his goal and his only goal. He knew that was in front of him, and so he didn't look this way, he didn't look that way. He was fixed on that. So the man who has faith, who is diligent and has control over the organs, attains to knowledge. The man who has faith, who is diligent and has control over the organs, attains to knowledge. Achieving knowledge, one soon attains supreme peace. So when we have that faith, when we have that as our supreme goal, and when we achieve control of the sense organs, that is, when we feel that we're no longer pulled by the sense organs towards the world, but we have a sense of self-control, then comes knowledge, then comes spiritual experience. So these are the things that we need to develop gradually, year after year of practice. Gradually we get these things, and then then that will lead to the attainment of knowledge. Knowledge meaning spiritual experience. And once we have that, then in a short time we will attain to the supreme peace, because that knowledge fulfills itself in higher and higher experience until the highest comes, and then nothing can, then we've attained to the goal. There's a beautiful incident in the life of Gopalarma, the devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, the old lady who is the worshipper of baby Gopal. She, of course, had the vision of Gopala and Sri Ramakrishna. Then she began to have the vision of Gopala and everything. And then one day Sri Ramakrishna said to her, "You have attained to everything." And she turned to him in surprise and said, "What? I've attained to everything?" He said, "Yes, you have attained to everything." And then she realized that, yes, I've come to the end of my spiritual life. You may wonder, why did she need Sri Ramakrishna to tell her? When the Upanishads themselves, it says, like in the Chandogya Upanishad, that knowledge must be confirmed by a teacher. Or in the absence of a living teacher, then God, the divine itself, can confirm that. But when that is confirmed that yes, you have attained to the highest, then one has all doubts gone. And remembering, speaking about Gopalarma, when I was in San Diego this past week with Swami Sarvapriyananda, it was a very good 4 days of retreat we had, excellently organized by Swami Harinamananda. And Swami Sarvapriyananda mentioned an incident which I hadn't known this aspect of it. I knew another. He mentioned Subhadra Mataji, a South Indian Karnataka devotee woman who had lived in Tapovan, high above Gangotri, high above Gomukh. Very saintly woman. She was the only one who lived there year-round. For about 11 years, she lived up there. She would be snowed into her cave for months at a time, unable to get out of her cave. And so I had seen her in 1991 when I went to Gangotri. I hiked up to Gomukh, took a bath in the coldest water I've ever been in. So cold that the capillaries in my skin all over my body were exposed. You saw red veining everywhere because the water it was ice cold. There was ice everywhere and water in the middle of the ice. So you're taking dunking yourself under that in ice water, extremely cold. And then I climbed up over the glacier, which is quite high. The glacier is high. It's a very dangerous path also because there are cracks in the glacier and places you can fall. And of course, you're walking on ice. And crossed over the glacier that forms the Ganges and then climbed up much higher to Tapovan. It's a high valley, high above Gomukh. Gomukh is high above. Gangotri is 10,000 something feet. Gomukh is much higher. Nowadays it's about, when I went, it was about 10 miles from Gangotri, or maybe 10 kilometers it was from Gangotri because of the receding glacier. And then you have to climb on top of that and go even higher to get to Tapovan. So it's quite high. There was, I went to the cave of Subhadra Mataji. And so she, like anyone who comes to her, she serves them tea and serves them some food and everything. They're living in her cave where she's, again, isolated all through the winter because no one else is there. No one can come, and she's snowed into her cave. Nowadays, she lives down below Gangotri because she's elderly. But Swami Sarvapriyananda met her when she had already moved out of Tapovan because of age. And the reason I've thought of her in this regard, mentioning Gopalarma, she sees Gopal in everyone. She's a Dvaitin, a follower of Dvaita, of Madhvacharya, and a worshipper of the baby Krishna. But she sees everyone as the baby Krishna. And so anyone who goes to her kutir, she'll feed them. And so there's stories of how sometimes she would be in the middle of worship and some pilgrim would come to her cottage and she would leave the worship and go and cook something for the pilgrim. And other people would say, Mataji, why don't you finish the puja? I said, my Gopal has come. What is the difference? My Gopal has come. I'll feed my Gopala. And so she sees Gopala in everyone. And a very, very saintly woman who serves people day and night when they come to her cottage, and with great joy and spontaneously because she sees Gopala in everyone. So one of the questions that came up in the retreat was, if she sees Gopala in everyone, why isn't she a non-dualist? Well, that's probably because of past samskaras. She was born and grew up and practiced sadhana as a dualist, and now she sees Gopala in everything. And if you asked her, she should certainly say, I'm a Dvaitin, I'm a follower of Madhva. But her experience is that in which she sees only one thing in everyone, and that everyone and everything, and that is Gopala. Anyway, that was a tangent because of the mention of Gopalarma, but a very beautiful, wonderful person. So we come to verse 40, which says, Agnyascha shraddadhanascha samshayatma vinashyati nayam lokosti na paro na sukham samshayatmanaha. So here he's talking about the opposite, one who doesn't have faith. So he says the agnya, one who doesn't know, ashraddadhana, one who has no faith, samshayatma, one who is filled with doubts, one who's completely full of doubts, vinashyati, is destroyed. So one who is ignorant, meaning spiritually ignorant, who has no faith and who is full of doubts, is destroyed. Nayam lokosti na paro na sukham samshayatmanaha. So samshayatmanaha, for the person who is full of doubts, ayam loko na asti. This world doesn't exist. Na paro, nor the other world. Na sukham, nor happiness. The idea is this world doesn't exist for such a person, means that this person misses out on the opportunity of this world. They live in this world, of course. It doesn't mean that they don't see the world. No, it means that the very purpose of a human birth is lost to them, and they don't attain to a higher life in the afterlife, and they miss out on happiness also. So why is that? So as Madhusudana says in his commentary, the main word in the first line of the Sanskrit, where it says, the one who is ignorant, spiritually ignorant, the one who has no faith, the one who is filled with doubts, the main word is the one who is filled with doubts. Because we are all ignorant. We haven't known the highest truth. We don't know God. God is a word and an aspiration, but not yet a living experiential reality. And so even very good people and spiritual aspirants can be ajna, non-knowing, because they haven't gotten there yet. So that's not bad. That's ashraddhana. A person who hasn't had some experience, they're not going to have full faith. So being faithless is not good, but that's where most people in the world are, those who are not spiritual aspirants. If you become interested in spiritual life, it's because there's a beginning of faith that you have. And so that's good, but there are many good people who don't have that faith also. So that may not lead to their spiritual fulfillment, but they're not bad people. But samshayatma, if you are filled with doubts, and that is something that is trained into us now. There's a place for doubt, but nowadays you find many people who have been so trained to doubt that they can't believe in anything. That anything that you tell them, then they question it and they say, oh, that's impossible or whatever, because they have been intellectually trained that you should doubt everything. And in fact, I've heard professors, philosophy professors, Western philosophy professors, to say that true philosophy doesn't exist in India. True philosophy, of course, they have defined philosophy to their advantage and then defined the Indian philosophy outside of philosophy. They say that true philosophy means never coming to a conclusion, that you're always doubting everything. You never accept a conclusion because you know that every conclusion can be questioned and can be argued against. So a true philosopher is one who never comes to a conclusion. Whereas the Vedantin would say that a true philosopher is one who may begin with questioning, but comes to a firm conclusion, because the purpose of philosophy is darshana, is experience. What is the use of a philosophy which just questions everything? This philosopher would, of course, say that, well, that's the way that we get to knowledge, and that's the way that we avoid error, because we always question everything. We never accept anything. No, then you become samshayatma. You become one who is possessed of doubts and can't get out of doubts. And such a person, nayam lokosti, this world doesn't exist, or this world doesn't serve the purpose of such a person, na paro, nor the afterlife, na sukham, samshayatmanaha, nor happiness. Because it's faith that brings the sense that, no, something is possible. In fact, none of us, including that philosopher, can live without faith. He's just decided that on philosophical propositions, being a philosopher means that you question everything. But he doesn't really question everything. He doesn't question the things he doesn't want to question. For instance, Swami Vivekananda said, okay, philosophers, you want to doubt that you are this body. And the philosopher, no, of course I know that I'm the philosopher, I'm the body. Well, how do you know that you're the body? There are many good reasons for believing that you're not the body, experiential reasons for not believing it. But no, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to question that. So the philosopher has decided, I'm going to question all philosophical statements. But I'm not going to question who I am, or that I'm a philosopher, and that I have a good position, and that I should be respected, and that I am this body, and that I'm going to enjoy things in life, and so forth. No, of course I'm not going to doubt those things. That's ridiculous. I doubt philosophical propositions, because that's what I do as a philosopher. No, what then is the purpose of a philosophical proposition? What use does it serve? What's the use of a philosophical proposition? If it's just to be doubted, then what's the use of it? There's no use to it. No use to it. What we want is to know what is, to know what is true. Just to be able to doubt, and somebody shows us a conclusion that if you do these practices, you'll come to this, and I can show you a long line of people for thousands of years who have done it and come to this experience. You can attain it also, but no, I'm going to doubt because that's what I do. Well, what's the use of that? No use to it. That's a lame idea of philosophy that Bertrand Russell, a great mathematician and philosopher that all of you have probably heard of, the great Englishman of the earlier half of the, he lived into the, up to late 60s, I think. I had read him when I was a teenager and liked him very much. He died maybe in the early 70s. I remember he came out in favor of free love. He was in his 90s, and he came out speaking in favor of free love in the hippie days in the late 60s. And so he probably lived into the early 1970s when he was close to 100, or maybe reached 100. Anyway, he said, as a philosopher, he said that a philosopher should never believe in his own philosophy. Why? Because if he believes in his own philosophy, he loses objectivity. So again, you see that idea of philosophy as something which is out here. You put it out here and you examine it, and you see there are contradictions between this and with that, and this is contradicted by that. This may be supported by that, but it all has to be out here. He says that if you believe in your philosophy, if you internalize it, and he even said if you try to live according to your philosophy, then you can't be a true philosopher. It has to be out there. I know, nonsense. What is the use of that? What's the use of it? Then it's just intellectual brain scratching. You've got an itch in the brain, and so you scratch it, and that's philosophy. I like to think about big ideas and make systems and everything. It's just like doodling on paper. Doodle on paper, it's out there. If I'm good at doodling, I can make a nice doodle, and everybody can admire it. And so I put my philosophy out here. I connect this eye to that one. I refute that one, and I refute this one, and show how this one is connected to that, and everybody can admire it. But it stays out there. What's the use of that? There's no use to it. That philosophy should be darshana, that which leads to experience. Philosophy should be an explanation of experience, but that which takes me to the deepest possibilities of experience. And so one who is ignorant and faithless and has a doubting mind perishes. So if we're filled with doubts, then vinashyati, then we perish. Vinashyamaha, we perish, because without faith, we can't live for a minute. You have faith that I don't have to think about my breathing because I have faith that air is going to be there. If I lost faith that there is air, then I'm going to think every moment, is there my next breath, will I be able to pull air in? But no, I have faith that I'm going to be able to breathe, so I don't worry about breathing. I have faith when I get in the car that I'm going to make it to where I'm going. Sometimes, of course, that doesn't happen. The car breaks down, we have an accident, or other things happen. God forbid, but it happens sometimes. But we don't get in the car without faith. We don't get in the car thinking, "Oh, I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to make it." If we get in the car thinking, "I'm never going to make it," then we don't start the car. We go back inside. And so those of you who are here tonight are those who felt that it's raining hard, the weather is bad, but still I think I can make it. And luckily you did. And you know that you can make it back home. The chances are very small that anything would happen. And so you have that faith that, no, I can make it, so I'm going to go. And so without faith, we can't do anything. We turn on the light switch in the faith that the electricity is working and the lights will come on. Yes, sometimes that's belied, but still we have the faith that everything is going to work. And so without faith, we can't live. And so the person who is always doubting everything, if you doubt people, everybody, yes, you may doubt somebody that you know is a crook, someone who has cheated you before, then certainly you're going to doubt them, and you should doubt them because they've proven themselves to be untrustworthy. But if you doubt everybody, as some people do, some people who don't trust their own mother and father, don't trust their own brothers and sisters, don't trust their own children. They doubt everybody, that everybody's out to get me, everybody's out to hurt me, everybody's a crook, everybody's a liar, everybody's a thief. The people who actually believe that and live that way, then what kind of happiness can you have? You can't have any. Business, commerce, such an ordinary thing as just business and commerce, finance, banking, buying and selling, marketing, all of that has to be based on trust. And yes, there are a lot of crooks in business, that's true. And business people are often trying to get away with as much as they can. But without some degree of faith, then business can't be carried on. You can't carry it on. You have to have some degree of faith, or why would you buy anything? Why would you give somebody something and expect them to pay you? Or they give you a check and you expect it to be cashed. Why would you couldn't do it? And so even in ordinary life, faith is essential. And for spiritual life, let me back up and say, what does that faith serve? What purpose does faith serve in our ordinary life? The faith that I'm going to be able to breathe, the faith that a huge wave is not going to come, wash over Galveston and then wash over Houston, and we're all going to be dead and wash all the buildings away. The faith that I'm going to be here tomorrow. What does that kind of faith provide? It allows us to act. It allows us to pursue the various purposes of our lives. If we don't have that faith, we'll sit in and that's what some neuroses and psychoses and paranoia and those things are about, with people who lose the very basic faith in the safety of the basic safety of the world. They can't do anything. They're paralyzed with fear. But ordinary faith that allows us to act in the world, it allows us to act in the world because we have confidence that allows us to move forward. Without that, we can't do anything. And so when we come to spiritual life, the same is true. If I don't have confidence, and that confidence doesn't come in the beginning, but after thinking about things, after reasoning, after study, after seeing many things, examining life, analyzing life in a deep way, as is told to us in the scriptures and by spiritual teachers, then I come to a conviction that, yes, spiritual life is real, and that is the solution to life's problems. Then that gives me the confidence to go forward. Without faith, we don't have the confidence to go forward. We won't put forth any effort. Every time we think of sitting down for meditation, we'll think, oh, what's the use? This is all of this stuff is just probably nonsense. It's probably untrue anyway. What's the use of going to the trouble of sitting and meditating? And we'll constantly undercut anything that we do in spiritual life. So faith is essential. And so one who is ignorant and faithless and has a doubting mind perishes. Neither this world nor the next, nor happiness exists for one who has a doubting mind. Let me just tell a story on faith and the absence of faith, which I found interesting and valuable. There was a devotee couple. It used to be, they were connected to the Boston Center. Some of you may have known them, Nina and Archie Stark. They were two devotees that used to go to Boston. They lived in New Hampshire. They wrote a very beautiful book on Swami Vivekananda also. Swami Vivekananda in America, the unopened gift. The Swamiji's gift to America that has been unopened by America so far. So Archie Stark, the husband, both of them were very fond of Swami Ritvijanandaji in Gretz. I first met them in India, and then I met them at Gretz, and then later I met them again in America. And so at Gretz, they used to go to see Swami Ritvijanandaji, whom they had met in New York when he was assistant to Swami Nikhilananda. So it was Nina who was interested in Vedanta, the wife. She became interested in Vedanta, and she used to go, and the husband was skeptical. Both of them were Quakers. Their own tradition was Quaker Christianity. And so finally Nina got Archie, her husband, to go, I don't know if he went to France with her or if on one of Swami Ritvijanandaji's trips to America, he went to see him with Nina. And so he spent several days in the company of Swami Ritvijanandaji. And so one day when they were talking, he said to the Swami, Swami, I don't know all about this. I don't know about all of this. I don't know if any of this is true. I have doubts about all of this Vedanta stuff. And Swami said, yes, it might be all untrue. And that was what convinced Archie that it was good. He said that if even this great man could say, yes, maybe it's all nonsense, maybe it's all nonsense. Of course, Swami Ritvijanandaji didn't really believe it, but he was willing to go along with Archie. And Archie said that when he said, yeah, Archie, maybe it is. Don't worry about it. Maybe it is all nonsense. Then Archie thought, oh, here's a man who doesn't have anything invested in getting me to get on board. He's not trying to convince me. He's not trying to make me a member. He's not trying to get me to sign on the dotted line, not trying to get me to donate into the donation box or anything else, just letting me go my way. I like that. So then he became a Vedantin with conviction. So faith comes in strange ways. So number 41 says, Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana samchinna samshayam atmavandam na karmani nibadhanti dhananjaya. So, Dhananjaya, Arjuna, Yoga sanyasta karmanam. So one who is yoga sanyasta karmanam, one who has renounced to work through yoga. That is, as he has explained before, that no one can rest even a moment without being active. And that the wise person is one who karmanya karma yapashet, who sees actionlessness in the midst of action, and action in the midst of actionlessness. Such a one is the true yogi. And so one who has given up attachment to the fruits of actions through yoga and has known that I am free of all actions, that the body and mind act, but I am free of action. So that's the yoga sanyasta karmanam. Jnana samchinna samshayam. One who has completely cut the doubt through knowledge, through the axe of knowledge or the sword of knowledge. He is completely cut through doubt. Atmavandam, who is self-possessed. Karmani na nibadhanti. Actions do not bind such a one. So no action binds a person who is of these qualities. The rest of us, we find ourselves bound by actions. No, we find that all of the time. You think of something that you want to go out and get. It's not something that's necessary, but you think that you want to go get it, and you go out on the road, and you've got just a little bit of time. You go out on the road, and then suddenly you find that there's an accident, and you're not even that you're involved in, but suddenly a huge traffic jam, and you're stuck in traffic for an hour, and you'd planned to go out for 10 minutes. And so action has that way of just complicating things. So as Sri Krishna says, we have to engage in action. Because action complicates things doesn't mean that we shouldn't engage in action. But we find that we engage in an action, and that leads to something else which complicates something else, and that leads to something else which complicates something. You buy a car, and then suddenly you realize, if you haven't had a car before, then suddenly you realize, oh my God, I've got to get insurance. And then I've got to compare rates and everything. Every insurance agents, everybody's offering something. I don't know what all of this means. I got to figure out out what I have to get and what I really need. And then you get insurance, and then you realize, well, I've got to keep putting gas in the car. I've got to buy gas. And then, oh my God, my tires need rotating and tires need to be changed. And then somebody bumps into me and I got to get the car fixed. And then the car gets dirty. I've got to wash it. All you wanted was just a little something so you could get to work and back. And now suddenly you've got all of these responsibilities. That doesn't mean you shouldn't buy a car. It means that action has that nature. One thing is tied to another thing, and you do one thing and then you find that you're enmeshed in this web of karma. So, yoga sanyasta karmanam is one who has come out of the web of karma not by doing anything, and not by having a car which never needs tires or gas or anything like that, but no, who is detached from the action, who does that which is necessary, but not with the sense of a doer. And so he's untouched by the complications of action. Yes, the car still has problems. The house that you bought still has problems. They still have to fix things and repair things. But your sense of self is separated from that. So yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinda samshayam. You've cut through all doubt with the sword of knowledge. Atmavantam, you are self-possessed. You are centered here. Your center of gravity is not out there as most of us feel. We feel that there's something out there that's the center of gravity and we're whirling around it. And the world is controlling everything about us. But no, they have become seated within themselves, seated within their own awareness. And karmani na badnanti, O Dhananjaya. The actions don't bind such a person. And then the last verse of the chapter says, Tasmad ajnana sambhutam hridstam jnanasinatmanah chitvainam samshayam yogam atishthotishta bharata. Tasmad, therefore, O Bharata, O Arjuna, O descendant of the Bharatas, therefore, ajnana sambhutam hridstam jnanasinatmanah chitvainam samshayam. Okay, therefore, O Arjuna, this samshayam, this doubt, which is ajnana sambhutam, which is born from ignorance. Our doubt is born from ignorance. We don't know God, we don't know the self. We're ignorant of the truth. The truth is God, the truth is the self, but we don't know that. And so we have doubt about God and the self. So our ajnanam is, or our samshayam, our doubt about spiritual truth is born of ignorance. Hridstam, established in the heart. God is supposed to be established in the heart, but right now it's our doubts which are established in the hearts. We've become a mass of doubts. Jnanasinatmanaha, with the jnanasina, the sword of knowledge, the sword of self-knowledge. Chitvainam samshayam, having cut through this doubt which is born from ignorance and which is established in the heart, with the sword of self-knowledge, yogam atishta uttishta bharata. Uttishta, arise, O Arjuna, and establish yourself, practice yoga by having cut through this doubt born of ignorance and established in the heart with the sword of self-knowledge. So as he says here, therefore, O scion of the Bharata dynasty, practice yoga and rise up, cutting asunder with the sword of self-knowledge this doubt of yours residing in the heart and arising from ignorance. So that is what he, after all of this instruction in chapter 4, he tells to Arjuna that now to take the sword of self-knowledge and cut through this doubt. So that, of course, is his instruction to us as well. So in this chapter, which we have now completed this reading of for this class, we won't complete it in one lifetime, but for this class we've completed chapter 4. Sri Krishna begins by telling the lineage of teachers where he taught this yoga to Vivaswan, the sun himself, the solar deity, and to Manu, and to Ikshvaku, the first king. And then Arjuna asks him, how is that possible that you, Sri Krishna, you are of this time, and Vivaswan is from ancient times, from the beginning of creation. So how is it that you say you taught him, that you gave this yoga to him? And then Sri Krishna tells him that I have had many births, and so have you. But I know them all, you don't know any of them. And then he goes into a beautiful explanation of the incarnation of God, and identifying himself as an incarnation of God. So again, remember that in the Vedas, there's no mention of the incarnation of God. That was a post-Vedic idea. In the Vedas, they had the idea of the rishis, they had the idea of adhikarika purushas, great people that were born with great knowledge and so forth. But the idea that Ishvara, God, incarnates in human form, that idea was not there. That came in the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and then the Puranas. And so Sri Krishna speaks of himself as the incarnation, and then he speaks of the nature of the incarnation as being beyond all action. Name partasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinjana. For me, O Partha, there is nothing and no duty to be done in the three worlds. I have nothing to do. And yet I'm constantly active. And then he talks about how, though he's constantly active, he really does nothing. And then he uses that to explain that that is the nature of a sage. That's what you are to aspire for. Not that we should aspire to be an incarnation of God, because that's not going to happen. But we aspire to have that nature which the incarnation spontaneously reveals with regard to action. And then he tells about the nature of action, and then how all action is of the nature of sacrifice, and how different people perform various sacrifices. But of all of the sacrifices, the greatest sacrifice is the sacrifice of knowledge, where everything is burnt into the fire of knowledge. And then says, as we saw tonight, that there is no purifier like the fire of knowledge, in which everything is purified. All sin is purified, all evil is purified, all karma is purified. That in the fire of knowledge, everything is purified. So Sri Ramakrishna's teachings to Swami Vivekananda, he used to say that nothing can pollute my Noren. That the Noren can eat anything and everything, because the fire of knowledge is blazing so bright in him that all impurities are burnt out in him. Whereas with his other disciples, he was careful about what they ate to keep their minds pure. But with Narendra, he said that he's such a blazing fire that no impurity can come anywhere close to him. And whatever he eats, he will burn it up, the impurities up. So with that, we'll close. Let me give a closing chant, and then I'll give announcements. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. That infinite reality is full, perfect, and complete. This relative universe is full, perfect, and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite reality, this universe has come, and yet that being remains ever the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So now for announcements, I'll give them quickly so that you can get out before the rain gets even.